Well, hello. This is Lana. I'm wrapping up my Ascendance game in season six. So this is my exit interview. Unfortunately, cry, all the tears. But no tears from me because I'm really pleased with how I played and really impressed with myself for making it this far in my very first org. Um, I came into this game with a plan, and I feel like I executed that plan to a T. I mean, even in my preseason interview, I said I wanted to have, like one ride or die, and then, a smaller core alliance of 4 or 5, and then a larger group alliance of 7 or 8. And I did exactly that. The core alliance kind of ended up falling into my lap. So the first thing I did in my game was I found my ride or die person, and that was Thulsi, because I saw myself in her. I saw us being really similar. I knew that we would have a lot to connect over. I knew that I was relieved when I saw her in the cast. I was like, okay, she's like me. We need to team up because A, we're both bad bitches and we're going to be amazing together. And B, because I sensed right away that Tulsi was going to be the biggest threat for me to win the game. So I knew I needed to have her on my side rather than against me. Otherwise, we were going to be probably gunning for each other the whole time. But luckily, the feeling was mutual between us, and I asked Tulsi to be in a final two alliance with me on day one. And that was the only final two alliance that I personally made. Then the next day, Corey came to me and offered me a final two alliance as well. He came to me and said, the way that I play this game is I pick one person and that person is my partner and I am like loyal to a fault to that person. And it was like music to my ears because in my preseason interview, I said that my ideal ally would be someone who is loyal to a fault. I mean, I said that word for word and it was right there falling into my lap, which was crazy. Corey, I was like, it wasn't somebody that I instantly felt like, oh, this is like my person, but he really, had a strong feeling about me, and I'm very grateful that he did because he did end up turning into my true closest ally in the game. Dulcie and I were really close friends, but and we did work together, extensively the entire game. But Corey was the person that I knew I could trust his word 100%. I knew that he was in the game to further the two of us. I really believed that. Like, we really truly did play the game as partners, I feel. So, because of Corey, even though I was completely new to the game and I did have a lot of fears coming in preseason about pregame connections and pregame relationships, I worried that I would be at such a disadvantage because I didn't know anybody, and I would have a hard time figuring out where all the pregame connections lie. That issue was solved for me right away because through teaming up with Corey, because he was connected to probably the other most connected people in the game, Alex and Matt. And I was brought into a 4-person alliance with them on day, I think it was 3 or 4. And that was the core of the alliance that really ran the game from the very beginning. So I suddenly just like found myself in this power position. But I believe that I don't think that that just happened by accident. I think that I really established myself right away as a dominant social presence. I knew this would be a big strength of mine coming into the game because I know myself. I know I'm a very social person, although I am actually a bit introverted. So this was all quite draining for me. But I know that my strength as a player was going to be in my social game. I find it very easy to connect with people in genuine ways and make them feel really seen and appreciated and valued, and that's all 1,000% genuine. I'll get to it, but I feel like I was accused a lot of being fake over the course of the game, but and I can totally understand why people might have perceived some of my actions or sometimes the way that I spoke that way, but I gotta say that's just really who I am as a person. I have a large amount of empathy for all human beings, and I knew that I would want to get invested into every person as much as I could. So I think that I don't think that Alex and Matt would have gone for an alliance with someone that they perceived to be, like unconnected or not useful in the alliance. I do believe that I was the reason that our larger alliance ultimately came together because I had the social connections with Dulcie. I had the social connections with Logan and Bill. I was connected to Kate and Colin and even like Brayden and Sean in the beginning. I was really doing the most socially. I was really on calls with everybody. While Dulcie was the only final two that I initiated, I had several others come to me and offer me final twos. And I'm not going to say no. Like, I'm not going to be like, no thanks. I don't like the idea of you and me till the end. Of course, I'm going to say yes. So, a big struggle for me in the game was kind of balancing all of those and not letting my own allies find out that I was, promising multiple people the end. At one point, I was really tempted to make a final two with Alex just because I love the guy so much, but I was like, this would just be really, really messy. I fully recognize that I came into this game playing hard. I straight out won the first mob boss competition that you could compete for, and I was really making my presence known as a social threat. I mean, like right from the get go, I was always on calls. So, and I performed well in virtually every challenge, that we had up until the end when I pretty flopped pretty hard on most of those challenges, but that's okay. In the beginning, yeah, I definitely recognize that I didn't do a whole lot to minimize my threat level, but you know what? I'm totally okay with that because I wanted to come into this game just like being my truest self. And my truest self is I don't like to lose. I like to be as competitive as possible. So there was no way I was going to purposely diminish my own challenge ability in order to appear weak, at least not for my first game. So I'm in this alliance. It's really going great. I find that I'm able to have agency in the alliance. I'm able to help, make strategic moves, and my opinion is valued and listened to. I kind of feel like I was responsible for the Sean blind side. I don't think it would have really caught fire the way that it did if I hadn't been so concerned that Sean was throwing my name out. I don't know whether or not that's true to this day. I don't plan on probably asking Jasmine about it, so I will probably never know if she lied or if Sean lied. Um, it didn't matter. That was like the turning point in the game. That was the moment where lines in the game were drawn. I felt like that was when the two sides, so per se, were really established based on connections that I perceived in the house, and with my allies' input, we perceived as a group. So that was the line that really, yeah, that was the game move that really drew the line in the sand. And before then, there had been this whole narrative of like just target the inactives because that's really easy. So really, nobody saw that move coming. It was a total blindside, first blindside of the game. It was really early on. A lot of people ended up feeling pretty hurt by that because I had left them out of the vote and I was working with them, like Kate and Colin. I just compared everything to the relationship that I had with Corey, Alex, and Matt, and I knew that the four of us were spending hours and hours on call, scheming and coming up with plans for virtually every situation and thinking through every possible thing that could go wrong. And I just knew that nobody else, I didn't have that relationship with anybody else. So I felt justified in all of my moves because I knew, because of the amount of information that was coming to me, that I should trust that alliance and probably not trust the people as much that aren't really giving me a lot of information. So I tried to only promise what I could. I tried not to be too misleading. I tried to just kind of tell part of the truth by saying like, I don't want you to go, or like, I'm not voting for you. Um, but I feel like people could catch on pretty quick, that I was lying. And at a certain point, we did hide our alliance for quite some time. We ended up bringing Dulcie in for the next vote, where we ended up using all the crazy powers. We needed Dulcie for her power that round. I had that connection with her. We needed Bill and Logan to stay strong with us, just in case, we couldn't control the mob setup. And I think we did have a pretty bad mob setup that time. That was, I believe, around that Brayden one, and was, definitely trying to target some people in our alliance. He might not have had all of the puzzle pieces of what was going on, but he had, a pretty general outline. I know that was Brayden is a little bit later, but the rock draw was really crazy. I ended up playing the power that I found. I don't regret that at all. I ended up playing a vote exposing power, so I could reveal all the votes of one round. So I was able to expose Zach and Oakley as having thrown 2 rogue votes on Corey in the very beginning of the game. I did not tell anybody about this because I didn't want it to be known that um, Corey and I were so close. I didn't want to say what the power was and that I had used it kind of to benefit Corey, to help Corey out. Even though it did benefit me as well, it gave my alliance, a clear side to target rather than looking inwards. Although some of my alliance members still were looking inwards for some of their targets pretty early on. No, do not blame them for doing that at all. But it definitely kept the target off my back for quite some time. So I don't regret doing that. And I pretty much knew where every vote was going to fall from then on. I wasn't surprised really by anything that happened from then on out. So I do feel like using that power that early in the game was not a mistake. I hold true to that. Let's see. Then, so we had the rock draw. I ended up winning that really crucial mob boss going into live night, knowing that like I was now, going to be perceived as the competition threat in the house. Me and Brayden were kind of neck and neck. We had like a fun competitive rivalry there. Got Zach out after that Rocks vote, which we should not have come out of alive. That was crazy. We used every power that we had. That was also when I started getting a feeling that Matt was definitely not as with us as he claimed to be, because he was very reluctant to give up his power. Understandably so, but we did really need it that round. And that was a round that solidified those bonds really tightly. And then from there, it just seemed kind of like we got all of our allies, or we got all of our targets out that we wanted. We got Brandon, we got Brayden, we got Zach. And then another move that really changed up the game was when Jasmine ended up flipping on Tulsi in that live night. That was not what anybody expected to happen. And it was, at the time, it seemed like it was very bad for my game, for Alex to go home. I don't know if it was really like a disaster, because it was one less member of my alliance that I had to vote out ultimately in the end. And it really gave Tulsi, Corey, and I a really, really strong control over our majority alliance. We had 3. There were then 4 of us, and I kind of had Logan and Bill in my pocket, and that really just, I think, like solidified the 3 of us as the crux of power in the game, really. But it was unexpected, but I will say the one good thing about Jasmine quitting is I think it kind of like really cut all of the tension that was forming between the 2 sides. Dulcie and Kate were able to like hash out what had happened in front of everybody, in front of the whole house, and they kind of like both took that shot of saying like, okay, we are on opposite sides. That was the first time it was really like announced in the game, and it helped me a lot because I felt like I knew my personal relationships with everybody, but they would be more understanding when I voted them out, because they just had this understanding that was out in the open that we were on different sides. So yeah, we got out Kate, unfortunately, and she did try to like threaten me with her jury vote. Gianna did as well. I think that ultimately they both would have still voted for me had I gotten to the end. But I tried to be as genuine and honest as I could on the way out. Not about it. It honestly depends on the person. Kate, I just told her straight up she was going. Gigi, I just told her straight up I was going, or that she was going. But I did, like want them to feel like I had made an effort to get to know them as a human being, and I didn't just write them off. And I'd made sure to do that with Oakley as well. Even though Oakley and I never talked an ounce of game, we kind of talked very like cryptically to each other. I still, wanted Oakley to know that like he wasn't insignificant to me as a human being. Like I appreciated his presence in the game, and I wanted to get to know him as a person. And um, I hope that that was respected more than it was perceived as being fake. So, uh, winning all of those touchy subjects categories during live night, I was voted who would be your best friend in real life, who is the best social game, who is going to be brought back for All Stars, and who is going to win the game. I was like, oh my god, I am toast. I thought I was done. I thought I was done after that. I was like, this sucks. Although it was very, very flattering at the time, it definitely like solidified me as the biggest threat in the game. But I was kind of so well protected that it didn't really matter. I knew that I had Corey, who was like till the death with me. I knew I had Thulsi that was going to have to kind of ride my coattails the whole time. Sorry, Thulsi. And I know that I had Logan and Bill who would have done anything for me. So I was really, really well insulated by that point. So I do give myself a lot of credit in like setting myself up for that situation. I do, however, regret the next couple of rounds because I did get comfortable in my alliance, I would say, and I wish I had thought a little bit further, and I wish I had been a little bit more self-interested. I think I felt like I was already playing very risky and messy by like having these multiple final twos. I had one with Colin as well that he offered me, so I guess I felt like I didn't want to be too villainous, but I wish I had thought more along the lines of Matt, because I think I could have done to Thulsi what Matt wanted to do to me. I think that I could have gotten Corey to flip on Thulsi, and if not Corey, I could have used Colin and Bill and Logan to do it. And I guess I guess I just fell into a position where I was like, it's going to be four of us to the end. It has to be me sitting next to someone from my alliance because no one will respect me otherwise. Deep down in my heart of hearts, I felt as though the jury would respect me no matter what for being what I felt like I was the strongest player in the game. I deep down, I really, really knew that, and I wish I had just gone for it and made the really villainous move and like backstabbed my alliance and taken Thulsi out because I was worried about her for so long. I was always just kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen when it comes down to like me and Thulsi in the end. Like, I don't know if I could beat her. I don't know if I could vote her out because I mean, she's my real friend now. We are very, very close friends. We spent so much time together during this game. And I know that it was really challenging, but I know that we were both thinking the same thing. So it might have been too hard for me to get away with. And ultimately, I don't regret those moves leading up to the end because I felt like I did what was best in the position that I was in at the time. And I don't regret that. And I really did go with what I thought was my best shot. I thought I had basically like a 2/3 chance of getting into the finale by the end. And, I have no one to blame but myself for squandering that final challenge. Um, yeah, but in retrospect, I wish I would have kind of flipped sides and gone further into my relationships with like Logan and Bill and maybe even Colin, even though he was a little squirrely and sketchy throughout the whole thing. Genuinely love all of them. I wish I had tilted the power to kind of like to have it be more of my puppets rather than more of the people that I was working with. I think that really would have solidified me as the winner. I just didn't know if my alliance would all turn on me in jury if I voted them out. So I guess that summarizes my game pretty well. I thought that like orchestrating Bill's blindside was going to be my big move, and I think that that was probably one of my biggest mistakes in the game because Bill was really really loyal to me to the end, and I guess I just didn't want to believe that there were so many people that were claiming that were going to be loyal to me to the end. It was kind of hard to believe, and I think I just psyched myself out, and I wish I had just had a little more fun with it, owned it a little bit more, known that this was like my season and I could have maneuvered around a little bit more. But of course, hindsight is 2020, And if I play another game in the future, I will definitely bring everything that I learned with me. That's it.
All right, Lana. Well, you actually walked through pretty much all the round. Like typically, what we do is we go through like round by round or like big parts in people's games and kind of ask them questions about that. But you did pretty much all that with your this first statement. Um, but there is a question from the viewers lounge that you did talk about towards the end of your first statement, and it was, what was your biggest regret? You did touch on potentially the Bill blindside being maybe your biggest downfall, and potentially using him, Logan, and or Colin to try to go against Tulsi. And you said hindsight is 2020. Um, so what would getting Tulsi out? What would that have looked like? How do you think, looking back now, you would have tried to do that?
Totally. So we were at 7 at that point. So I could have assembled a majority of 4 by asking. I mean, I think I could have just straight up asked Bill and Logan to vote out Tulsi. I think I could have called them and said, this is the plan and this is what we're doing. And I think they would have done it. Colin was a little bit trickier for me, I thought, because he Bill and Logan were like really really loyal players and pretty relaxed players. They weren't the players that were really like hustling around, and at least from my perception, that were not really hustling around trying to, make things happen behind the scenes. I think they were just really content to like stick together with, our 6-person alliance and just all vote together. And I think they really trusted me, and knew that I was more well connected in the house than or in the game than the rest of them. Colin, on the other hand, was playing this amazing game where he was like navigating the middle so well. He had relationships with everybody. So I couldn't get a clear read on Colin as to, I couldn't expect what he was going to do with the information that I wanted to blindside Tulsi. I was afraid that he would, you know, see, I think because I saw myself as the biggest threat in the game the whole time, I always was just thinking about like, okay, but how could someone ruin my game with the information that I'm giving them? I felt like I was in such a precarious position. So I didn't know if I could trust Colin to really to not blow that plan up. So I don't want to say that's the main reason. I'm not blaming Colin, because really the main reason was I didn't want to blindside Corey at that point. I didn't think I could tell Corey about that. I thought he would be really disappointed and kind of turn on me the way that we were about to turn on Matt, and the way that I had been ready to turn on Matt for several rounds, because he had been considering going against the Alliance. So I kind of felt like that would have been a really, really dangerous move for me. But in hindsight, I do wish I had done it and voted Tulsi out 4-3. And then from there, I think that Corey basically would have had no choice but to go with me and Bill and Logan. Although now that I'm saying that, he could have completely flipped to Matt and gotten with Colin, and then it would have been 3-3. So it's hard to say exactly what would have happened. I do feel as though I could have gotten Corey over to my side, and we could have voted out Matt, and then we could have voted out Colin, and then the final 5 would have been me, Corey, Bill, Logan. Who am I forgetting? And Colin. Colin was always going to win that competition at 5, that endurance. So I think Colin was destined for 4th place in this game, no matter what. But it could have been a final 3, ideally, probably of me, Corey, and Logan. And I know I would have won unanimously, no matter what.
In that perfect scenario, you, Corey, and Logan in the final 3, are you trying to win the competition and take somebody, or are you throwing it and trying to get taken by either or what are you doing?
I'm not throwing it. I'm not throwing it. I'm not throwing the final competition for anyone or anything. I think it would have been a power move for me to win that final competition and bring whoever I wanted and still win.
Who would
And
you have brought, do you think?
I probably would have brought Corey still. I did feel as though I could beat Corey in the end, and then I could say that I was loyal to one of my final twos because I did not have a final two with Logan. And I could, really save face with Corey and kind of prevent him from campaigning against me too hard, if he felt like I was really preserving the loyalty of our game relationship. Again,
So,
I would have had the most comp wins at that point too if I had won.
right.
That would be impressive.
Yes. So after joining the Ascendant jail or the jury and getting to kind of talk it up with the remaining jurors, do you have a gauge or a temperature of how the jury is feeling potentially going into this? Well, of course, you guys are going to have your jury roundtable, but do you have a like feel of what they're thinking with the remaining two players, Tulsi and Corey?
Yeah. Well, I stayed up all night reading everything that had happened in the jail. Obviously, I'm the last person to have joined, so there was a lot for me to catch up on. But the vibe that I'm getting, first of all, is of disappointment, because I did feel as though the jury was rooting for me and did really hope to see me in the end and would have probably voted for me. So have to have my moment there. But that is not the reality that we are living in currently. The jury is kind of saying they're not super thrilled to vote for either of them, but I am getting the sense that a lot of jurors do not respect Corey's game because of his explosive nature. He did have a fair amount of outbursts in this game that, I'm not necessarily blaming him for. I understand that this is a part of his personality that he struggles with, and it's not something that he's necessarily proud of or trying to do. This is just when something triggers Corey and he feels threatened or like vulnerable in any way, he just goes off. And that is something that I very quickly learned about him as an ally. And a lot of jurors just see this as an unforgivable offense. And I think a lot of them are going to be really looking to Corey to either own that or apologize for it. I'm not exactly sure what will be the most satisfying answer to the jury. But I think a lot of the jurors are having hangups about Corey as a person. I think they are not sure that they want to reward his actions. I think that the roundtable might kind of sway. It might shake things up a little bit because I don't feel as though Corey's gotten enough credit for being the really, really like the nucleus of power in the house. I do believe that Corey was, in the center of making most of the decisions. So I think that he should get a lot of credit for playing a very, very strategically dominant game. I do see the scales tipping overwhelmingly in Tulsi's favor. I do expect Tulsi to win the season. As of right now, I do plan on voting for Tulsi because I feel as though Tulsi and I played very similar games. We had, all the same allies. And we pretty much did everything together. So I kind of feel like, in a very vain way, by rewarding Tulsi's game, I'm also rewarding my own game. But I also, again, believe that Tulsi contributed greatly to all the strategic moves in the house. She found powers when they were really needed. She went to rocks for allies. That kind of loyalty was imperative we couldn't have gotten that far without it. So I think that people on the whole are going to recognize that perhaps Corey played a more strategically strong game. They respect Tulsi as a person more, and I think that that is going to be a large factor in how the jury votes tomorrow.
I forgot to mention some of these questions were from our viewers lounge, and that Rocky asked the biggest regret question. Rocky also asked a question that I think you pretty much touched on, and that was, is your vote locked, or are you still waiting for the finale and what the finalists say?
My vote is still kind of in flux, I will say. I I am pretty set on Tulsi, but I will be interested to hear what they have to say for themselves. I basically at this point I would have to be really, really blown away by Corey's final speech. I really want to see him fight for it. I really want to see him. I want to see him at his most like gracious and humble. I don't want to see Corey like insulting other people. I don't want to see Corey bitter. Basically, I don't want to see Corey the way that he behaved on my way out last night. I felt pretty I felt a little used and disrespected by Corey's behavior after my elimination. And because it was still so recent, I think I'm going to need him to address that and talk about our relationship before I could feel good about voting for him. But I kind of came into the jail kind of being ready to like, I kind of want to like see if I can influence the vote to be Corey. Um, but I think that was perhaps a little bit of bitterness in the moment.
Okay. So actually, Nicole in the viewers lounge asked a question for you. I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but going through this as your first long formatted org, I know that you're familiar with sequester and whatnot. What are you going to do differently if you play another kind of long format org in the future? What would you change? What would you do differently?
I think I definitely think I played very hard in the beginning. And I don't know if that is something that I would want to be like a staple of my game. It happened to work out for me this time. I wonder how much further I could have gotten in the game if I hadn't, well, I couldn't get that much further, but I wonder if I could have made it to that finale spot by minimizing my threat level in the very beginning. Perhaps if I had not won a bunch of competitions in the beginning, and not really asserted myself as kind of the, most social player in the game, I wonder if I would not have been perceived as being the clear front runner, and therefore I could have had a chance of actually being in the end. On the flip side, would I have won if I didn't do all those things? So I've definitely learned that being front center is not always going to be the move for me. I would definitely have to address that. I think I would definitely try to play a little bit lay a little bit more low. And I was really I was really inspired by Alex's game because I felt like he could so effortlessly connect with people, but also be brutally honest with them. And oftentimes, I think behind the scenes was kind of like letting people know what was going on. And there's an immense amount of respect that comes to someone who is like, bold enough to actually tell someone when they're going home. I think I would try to do less blindsides because I don't think that they were necessary when I knew that the power was with my group, that there wasn't really any way for us to go wrong, especially if we told that person maybe like, 2 minutes before the tribal. So I think I would try to, yeah, maybe blindside less and play a little bit more of a more transparent game and not be afraid to really talk about what my position in the game was, especially when I had got to a point where I knew that I was kind of untouchable.
Okay, so we have another question from our viewers lounge, and this question is from Jordan Memes, and he asks you, overall, this was your first org experience. Did you enjoy it? Was it what you thought? All of the above. How did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy it?
Yes, yes, I enjoyed it so much. I had a blast. I, this is coming to me at a very strange time in my life, a very strange time in everybody's lives. I never expected that the first time that I would attempt a social strategy game like this would be like quarantined in my childhood bedroom. But I'm also so grateful that I came at this time because I could really give it 1,000% of my energy, and that's exactly what I did. So I really like poured my heart and soul into this game. I'm sure the viewers know that like I was on calls all the time. I was always chatting with people. I think I didn't expect it to be so demanding. I didn't expect that I would be spending hours and hours and hours with these people. Um, it was a lot of fun. I made genuine friendships with people. I think the people in the cast are pretty amazing. So I definitely had a lot of fun. I would say, I guess it's not what I expected because I really didn't know what to expect. I tried to do as much research as I could, as I'm sure everybody knows, but I ultimately I just didn't know what to anticipate in terms of like the Skype format. Like that was the most interesting thing to me. I was like, okay, how does this work? Like I have like all these private chats with people. Like just figuring out the logistics was I think the most surprising thing to me, and I didn't expect to I didn't expect to be so loyal. I kind of came into this thinking that I would be a lot more ruthless and a lot more self-interested. Um, but yeah, it was what I expected, but also not what I expected at the same time. I'm sure that's a very helpful answer.
That's a great answer.
Thank you.
Um, a question that I'll ask you, that JG usually asks whenever he's on an exit interview. If production were to ask you to come back and play again, would you, or are you kind of just done with this series?
I would definitely play Ascendance again. Um, I don't think I could ever play the same way. I think that I would have to play a totally different game. Like I might have to play from the bottom. If I believe that I have, a reputation now in the Ascendance community, so I know that my game would not look anything like this time around. So I would just have to kind of like accept and prematurely that like sometimes you lose and you're not always gonna win. So sometimes you're like really gonna lose. So I would have to be okay like going into it knowing like this is just for fun, whatever happens, happens. Whereas this time I was kind of like I need to win or like I need to go as far as I can go. I cannot go out early. Um, so yeah, I would absolutely play again. Maybe not right away. We'll see.
Okay, Lana. So those are all the questions that I have for you, and you've answered all the other questions that have been posed, I guess. If you have anything else you would like to add to the end of this exit interview, you can do it now. If not, I can go ahead and stop the recording for you.
No, I just want to say like thank you so much to production for having me, especially you, Duke. I would not be here if it was not for you. So personally, thank you. Nicole and Papa and JG and Emily, they are all fantastic. Like, you guys put so much into this. It's really astounding. Um, I can't believe that I've uncovered this little world. I had no idea that all of this existed. It's really beautiful. Y'all are like truly a family, and I think that's amazing. And as much as I'm saying right now that perhaps I need a short break, I do think that orgs are going to be very prevalent in my life in present and the future. So all in all, just like very grateful for the experience.